Now, your point on apprenticeship, that's real key. Because enslavement, if you look at the Caribbean, it's very clear that the enslaved Africans in the Caribbean, when slavery is over, they come into colonialism, and then they get their independence in the 50s, 60s. Their skilled people are all trained by their own people, and they're coming up under apprenticeship. And the same with us. And so the apprenticeship systems, John Henry Clark, I'm doing a book on mastery, SEBA, which is our system for teaching. John Henry Clark, a high school education, one of the best scholars we've ever had. He apprenticed under masters, William Leo Hansberry being the most important of many masters, Mm-hmm. And Malcolm X, he apprenticed under masters. Paul Robeson being the most important master. We often think of Elijah Muhammad, he had influence, but Paul Robeson's influence precedes Elijah's in prison. And it had a great influence because it was political, whereas Elijah's was more spiritual, and they were both important. But this whole point of apprenticeship, where you're looking to elders who are masters to provide guides for you, that system still exists, but it's much weaker, as you point out, because of the intrusion, not just of public schools, but now in the case of jazz schools, where now it's not being taught as you're living under a master and learning from a master and undergoing transformation. Now you're learning the mechanics of music. And then the music changes with that. But this mm-hmm. system of apprenticeship is still there. And your point about unemployment, that major cause for gang activity is, it used to be if you were in a gang, after 20 or so, you're out, you got a job, you're raising a family. Now there's no jobs. And so as a result, gangs become families for life. And, your point about the attack on elders, the institution of elderhood was one of the key things we carried in slavery, from Africa, and out of slavery. And one of the reasons why we made good decisions is that elders were there that we were listening to. Now, not only for the gangsters who are out there shooting people, but for a lot of younger people, they're listening to their peer group as the one that's giving them advice. And there's a guy that works out with me at the Y, he's blind now. He used to be gangbanging and stuff, and then he got wise. And he said, today, common sense isn't so common. And so we've now got brothers and sisters who don't want to take a shot because of what happened to us with the Tuskegee experiment. And I understand their reason, but people are not dying from taking shots. They're dying from not taking them. And of course, they were dying before you had shot.
And that's saying that people who misunderstood what happened at Tuskegee, they didn't die from taking shots. They died from not having been given shots.
Well put.
Okay. And so, and that's why it's important to study history and not just get caught up in somebody else's mystery of your history. Mm-hmm. So, but to come back to that point of apprenticeship and who are the young people listening to, it appears they're listening to their peers, but they're not really listening to their peers. They and their peers is listening to the Eurocentric socialization instruments. Mm. Yeah. They control the music industry. They control the movie industry. They control higher education. They control the sports industry. They control how you get money, okay? How you get access to making money. That's what they're listening to. Mm-hmm. You see? And that level of socialization have cut the Black elder population out, because where we went to church from babies right into our adulthoods, now we almost all graduate from church when we graduate from high school and leave home. Mm-hmm. That wasn't what happened even when I was growing up. When you were growing up, we stayed attached to those churches. And if like people from South Carolina, when we left South Carolina and went to New York, we knew what church to affiliate with as soon as we got to New York. Because that church was a part of the body church that we grew up in South Carolina. We knew what bar to hang out at, because that particular bar was made up of your community people, your village from South Carolina. And they had their signals and their signs and symbols. So, don't go in the Alabama bar, you're going to get the hell whipped out of you. You better go in the South Carolina bar, don't go in the Georgia bar, okay? You had to make peace to move into those spaces. That kind of social organization that we may take for granted was very African. And it continued until very recently. The era that we're calling the hip hop generation era was when white people took real control over the socialization of Black youth outside of the school system. And that's because of the kind of money and capital that could be distributed to them, for following a certain kind of philosophical or belief system, or even innovation.